This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
It would be a tall ask for Vikings versus Bears to live up to what we saw last night between the Bills and the Ravens, but we've been surprised in the NFL plenty of times before. So we're going to dig into this Monday night game, break down my thoughts on the spread and the total, let you know which player props I like, and lay out an SGP I am eyeing for tonight at FanDuel Sportsbook. Welcome on into Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is JimSannes. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research, here to preview Monday Night Football in Week 1 between the Vikings and the Bears, giving my read on the best bets at FanDuel Sportsbook for this game. We'll dive into all that here in just 1 second, but first, a reminder to make sure you're subscribed to the Covering the Spread podcast feed and the FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page. The Covering the Spread podcast all go up on the YouTube page after the fact. We also have the live DFS show on Thursdays. So tomorrow, going to break down my thoughts on every game across week 2, going game by game, talking my models, spread, and totals. Then we'll go through on Wednesday, college football, Thursday, NFL, and Friday, NFL player props, all throughout this week. So 5 shows per day beginning this week on the Covering the Spread podcast feed, 6 per day on the FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page with the DFS show in there as well. So Covering the Spread, wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page to watch all of these. Also, make sure to subscribe, leave us a thumbs up or a 5-star rating. We appreciate those of you listening and watching as always. FanDuel is making Week 1 even bigger. The chance to win a share of $2 million in bonus bets with one last chance for Monday night. $2 million. Here's how it works. Opt in and place an anytime touchdown bet for Monday Night Football. Use your profit boost, and if the player you pick scores either the first or the last touchdown of the game, you'll earn a share of $2 million in bonus bets. First touchdown, you're in. Last touchdown, you're in. Both, even better. It is just one more reason to bet on the NFL with FanDuel. So whether you've got a feeling about that opening drive or you're banking on a clutch finish, now is the time to get in the game. FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC, Kentucky, or Wyoming. Opt-in required. Must apply profit boost token on select market. Prize pool to be split equally among all eligible participants who made the correct first or last touchdown pick. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 21 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit MD Gambling Help in Maryland. Help is here. Visit Gambling Helpline MA.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Let's take a look now at the baseline markets here for the Vikings at the Bears on Monday Night Football. Right now at FanDuel Sportsbook, the Vikings favored by 1.5. Money line is -120. Bears sitting at +102 there. Total in this game is 43.5. And after how many unders we saw across the first couple of days of Week 1, I am delighted to tell you I do not show value in the over for this game. Get me off that train as fast as possible. I'm at 43.3, so I'm directly in line with market, and that's okay. I'm okay with being in line with market there because I don't want to bet another over with the way things went overall. However, it does influence the way we view a lot of things. I've talked about this throughout this week, but I have an anytime touchdown model I'm using now to try to find some value in that market, and Week 1 went pretty well there, despite the fact there were so many low-scoring games. But that total that I have, 43.3, goes into that model. And because there aren't a lot of points being scored here, I see zero value in the touchdown score market. In fact, I look at the players I looked at. There was only one player who was actually a value for me to score. That player was Josh Oliver at 8-1. I have him at +760. So I'm not going to bet that personally. You can if you want, but I'm not going to get there. And that's a bummer because it does limit our options here. We have to look at just like the more player level markets as a result of that. The other way we could see value in a touchdown score market is if I had a heavy skew towards one team. Like, yes, the total is where it should be, but maybe I have a lean towards one team. I do not, because I have the Vikings favored by 1 point in this game. So I'm in line with market on both the spread and the total. So we're not going to bet either of those, but also hard to squeeze out value. That means if we want to find value in this game, we've got to do so by trying to identify players whose roles are either under or overrated based on our expectations coming into this year. That's going to lead to our first bet of the night. It's going to revolve around the Chicago Bears backfield because it is super banged up right now. Now, both Kyle Monangai and Roschon Johnson have a shot to play in this one. Monangai will play off the injury report, and then Roschon Johnson limited in practice Saturday with his hamstring injury. I am more skeptical Roschon plays. Monangai should play. However, Kyle Monangai is also a late round rookie who missed a lot of camp, and that's a really tough setup to be in. There's no Travis Homer on this team anymore, so the backfield depth for the Bears is very, very thin. That leads to me liking DeAndre Swift over 73.5 rushing plus receiving yards, which is minus 112 at FanDuel Sportsbook. Swift is not my favorite player on the planet. I think there was a reason the Lions moved on from him when Ben Johnson was there. There's a reason the Eagles moved on and upgraded to Saquon Barkley. I kind of felt like the Bears were going to do the same this offseason. They did not. And I think that's important for DeAndre Swift here. There aren't a lot of alternatives to push his role down. Maybe Monangai is that guy eventually, but it's hard for me to expect that because, again, he is a rookie who missed a lot of camp. Swift does get work as both a rusher and as a receiver. And again, with Roschon Johnson being banged up, there are fewer options to replace him right now. This Vikings defense is very good. They're a good defense, but it's also very chaotic. That's a Brian Flores kind of scheme where they're throwing a lot of stuff at you, and that can lead to chunk gains against them at times. And Swift did get those occasionally last year too. So that's a lot of like the role-based stuff. As far as the offense goes, the offensive line is a lot better now than it was before. The interior specifically, that should help DeAndre Swift be more efficient as a rusher. So I'm probably not going to be on DeAndre Swift super often this year. Frankly, I would not be shocked if this is the only time that I am on him this year. But when you give me the depth issues that the Bears have in their backfield, I do think it makes sense to be on DeAndre Swift. Specifically for me, the rushing plus receiving yardage market, 73.5 is minus 112 at FanDuel Sportsbook. I do think there is value in that number. The other role-based bet that I like for this game, or on the Bears side of things, is going to revolve around their tight ends. Obviously, Colston Loveland, this hyper talented guy coming out of Michigan. He was a high-end pick for the Bears, taken above Tyler Warren, who was awesome in his first game with the Colts. Loveland's mark is at 28.5 receiving yards. I'm excited to see what he can do in the NFL. He was banged up all last year from Michigan and played limited snaps as a result, but that you could tell that he was a difference maker on the field. However, his snap rate in the preseason, he was splitting a lot of work with Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet is, in theory, now the number 2 tight end for the Bears. But if you look at like the snap rates and the snap distribution for the Bears in the preseason, they were kind of using Kmet and Loveland like a 1A, 1B situation where both guys were playing a lot of snaps and getting a good number of routes. That kind of does make sense because Luther Burden didn't really step up for the Bears in the preseason, had a lot of injuries. He's behind the 8 ball right now. And Olamide Zaccheaus is a useful football player, but he's not a needle mover. So it does make sense we could see a bit more 2 tight end stuff out of the Bears, especially early, because the Lions did that under Ben Johnson as well. Kmet's receiving yardage line is at 11.5 yards, whereas Loveland is at 28.5. I think that gap should be quite a bit smaller than what it is, given that I think we're going to see a pretty similar snap rate for both guys, probably hovering around 60% or so. So to me, it's really a personnel-based bet based on what we saw in the preseason, and that stuff does tend to be sticky a good chunk of the time, not always, but a good chunk of the time it does kind of give us a tell, and that to me says Cole Kmet will still have a role on this team. So 11.5 yards, a good number to get Kmet at, and it's one I'm willing to take personally for this game. You also could consider the Colston Loveland under 28.5. Maybe we'll talk more about that in the final section of the show for today. Before that, though, I did want to go through the one bet I like in the Vikings side of things. Vikings personnel is also super in flux because there is no Jordan Addison for this game, serving a 3-game suspension. And that makes him pretty thin. It's why they traded for Adam Thielen from the Panthers last week. So TJ Hockenson, the clear, I would say, number 2 pass catcher in the hierarchy behind Justin Jefferson. Jefferson's line 80.5 yards. That makes sense. Fully fair. I'm not going to get there. Hockenson is at 41.5. And although I'm not the biggest Hockenson guy in general, because doesn't get a lot of downfield targets, I think his role will be good enough in this game with Addison out for me to justify over 41.5 at minus 114. If you look at the games after Hockenson returned last year for the Vikings, he had an 18% overall target share with a 16% deep target share. And those came after he had a pretty major knee injury and missed the first half of the year. Now he's a year further removed from the injury. You're taking out a key piece with Jordan Addison. They trade for Adam Thielen. I gave long consideration to a Thielen under at 34.5. I think that I'm still pretty skeptical there, given he's been in this offense previously, but still getting ramped up there. He is an older player for sure. Maybe they get some of the younger guys involved too. You could consider going under on Thielen, but I just felt better about the Hockenson over at 41.5 because, again, he'll probably be the number 2 guy behind Justin Jefferson. And I think that, again, being a year further removed from that knee injury, we should see a better version of Hockenson than what we saw last year. I'm not into his upside very much, which is why I don't want to go towards alt markets. A lot of times on the show, on the Monday Night Football preview, we'll go through alt markets and okay, I want this guy to get 80 plus receiving yards. That's not really the kind of archetype I view Hockenson to be, but 41.5 to me does make a lot of sense. So I will be happy to go there with TJ Hockenson over 41.5 receiving yards. That is minus 114 at FanDuel Sportsbook for tonight. So again, the 3 bets that I like here, all very much based on the roles I'm expecting here and the personnel situations. Bears backfield is banged up. For Cole Kmet, saw a lot of snaps for him alongside Colston Loveland in the preseason. And for TJ Hockenson, no Jordan Addison and a lot of question marks at the other receiver position. So we'll take his over there. I think that's a good way to build out a card for tonight. I'm not showing value in either the spread or the total. As we'll finish up every Monday here for the Monday Night Football preview, I want to do my favorite SGP of the night at FanDuel Sportsbook. You'll see a lot of times like SGP offers for Monday Night Football. It's a different offer for tonight, but like a lot of times you will see an SGP kind of offer. So we'll close things up by going through my favorite SGP of the night. This one is going to revolve around the Bears skill player situation where, again, the backfield is thin, and I think that Kmet will have a better role than what the markets are saying. So we're going to start with that Kmet over 11.5 receiving yards, minus 114, and pair it with the Loveland under 28.5 at minus 114. Very much a correlated situation where I'm backing Kmet because I think that he'll be on the field a lot, and that inherently means Loveland's snap rate will be a little bit lower too. I like him a lot long-term. Maybe not for tonight in week number 1. First game for him as a rookie tight end. So Kmet over 11.5, Loveland under, and then we'll go with the DeAndre Swift rushing plus receiving yardage mark 2, taking advantage of how thin this backfield is. If you put those 3 legs together, comes out to plus 468 at FanDuel Sportsbook for a 3-leg same game parlay. I feel pretty good about this based on, again, the way the personnel sets up for the Bears in this game. I do think we can see a lot of paths to this being the proper way to read this one. So Kmet over 11.5, Loveland under 28.5, Swift over 73.5, rushing plus receiving yards, plus 468 as our SGP for tonight at FanDuel Sportsbook. That is all that we have here for today on Covering the Spread. Back with you once again tomorrow. We're going to go game by game, breaking down my thoughts on all the spreads and totals for week number 2 in the NFL and try to see where you can find value early in the week in those markets. Got any questions for me? I am on X and Blue Sky at JimSannes. I am on Threads at Jim.Sannes, and you can find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work on the video side of things. Thank you, Justin, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you with your bets on Monday Night Football. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow to already break down NFL week number 2. This has been Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast.